Thank you very much, Chairman Sessions. I want to also thank the witnesses for being here today. This is going to be an interesting hearing, and I hope it is, in fact, the beginning of a process that gets us to greater financial efficiency. Last July, we gathered this committee room and held a hearing to address financial accountability in the Department of Defense. And just like magic, we're back here again today to continue that conversation and to continue it in light of the Department of Defense's recent inability to pass a clean audit for fiscal year 2023. Unfortunately and sadly, this is not a new phenomenon, as we all know, at the Department of Defense. In fiscal year 2018, DOD began its efforts to successfully complete a department-wide audit. The FY18 audit, covering $2.7 trillion in assets and $2.6 trillion in liabilities, was likely and probably the largest audit any of us have ever conceptualized. As expected for such a large organization, the first audit attempt revealed severe material weaknesses, where DOD could not provide an accurate accounting of their finances. There have been as we know, five additional audit attempts after the 2018 audit, and yet most of the Department of Defense still has not produced a clean audit. So to be clear, like most of us in this room, I support our troops. I know, like many of you, that Congress has a duty to ensure our nation is protected from a growing number of threats, both at home and abroad. I also know we have a duty, however, to maintain accountability for the billions of dollars that make up defense spending, dollars that total about half of the federal government's total discretionary spending and nearly $3.8 trillion in total assets. In fiscal year 2024 alone, U.S. taxpayers turned over $851 billion to the Department of Defense. That figure represents one of the largest investments in the DOD budget in our nation's history. And while we continue to provide the Department of Defense with escalating sums of money, only 11 of the 29 components achieved clean audits. The 18 components that failed, including the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, comprise about 90% of DOD's assets by dollar amount. I want to go back to what the chairman said about the Marine Corps. Maybe there's something to be learned there by the other departments, but clearly they seem to be on the right path. So standing in the way of a clean audit for these components is the wide prevalence of material weaknesses. In other words, areas in which the Department of Defense lacks internal controls over financial reporting. We've heard a lot about that in the previous hearing. We're hearing it again now, and I'm sure as you all testify, that will continue to be a term that makes its way into this conversation. So I'm gratified and quite appreciative of the sacrifice that so many hardworking Americans make to keep our nation safe. This committee believes, however, we must ensure that our service members have the most sophisticated, modernized technology systems to eliminate the threats that exist, but also that the department has the most modern and efficient way of doing its accounting. I look forward to discussing how this committee, and indeed the entire Congress, can work with the Department of Defense in modernizing its financial management systems and how we can actually incentivize DOD to improve the acquisition and management practices that it employs every day. The security of the nation remains of paramount concern, and accountability measures across the Department of Defense must be efficient, they must be effective, and they must be informative. So I look forward, Mr. Chairman, to hearing the testimonies of the witnesses before us. I would be remiss if I did not say that patience is running thin. And I don't know how to say it any other way, but we expect more. And that's why we are pushing for more in a bipartisan way to bring about the change that we know is so desperately needed. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield back any time.